As the Thruway Authority prepares to raise your tolls at the start of the new year, we've learned the authority is also raising the salaries of its top officials.
Coming to a toll plaza near you, a Thruway toll hike. The Thruway Authority says a toll increase, or adjustment as they like to call it, is needed to keep up with highway maintenance. But we've discovered it's also needed to maintain salary increases for the top Thruway brass.
The Thruway budget is a hefty budget. They have a lot of money in there. They can work with what they got. They should be looking to cut tolls, but if they don't want to cut tolls, they certainly shouldn't be raising tolls.
Cases in point, and combing through public salary records for 2020 and 2021, we find Thruway Chief of Staff Matthew Trapasso went from a salary of $145,000 to $175,000, 30 grand or 20% more in just 1 year. Director of Maintenance and Operations James Constellid was making $167,000 in 2020, $188 grand the next year, a nice $21,000 or 13% bump. Compare those numbers to the average salary hike for New Yorkers last year. According to Salary.com, it was 4%.
If money is so tight, why are top officials getting raises?
We went straight to acting Thruway Executive Director Frank Hoare to ask about the salary hikes that come as the Thruway is raising tolls.
The average raise in New York State is about 4% a year, but these are 20 or 15% raises.
Well, the people who got those raises were people who changed jobs, got significant responsibilities, became department heads, and they were in line with every other agency and authority in terms of what is spent on, again, to get the best and the brightest.
But do you see the optic of asking for money to raise tolls while you're also raising salaries?
Yes, well, I hate the idea that we have to pay overtime, that we have to pay higher for salaries. I prefer we not.
There's more. There's Jamie Barbas, the project coordinator on the relatively new Murrow M. Cuomo Bridge, part of the Thruway system. She makes $350,000 a year, but has collected a $50,000 bonus each of the past 3 years as well.
And it's not just the top brass. Some of the highest paid Thruway employees are rank and file workers who are taking in massive amounts of overtime pay.
A bridge maintenance worker had a base salary of $105,000 in 2021, but actually earned $227,000, thanks to $122,000 in overtime. In 2021, records show a crane and shovel operator, whose base pay was $67,000, actually made $150 grand. A trade specialist went from a base of $65,000 to $139,000. A bridge painter from $70,000 to $146,000. At the last in-person public hearing on the toll hike plan, some were okay with the big paydays.
I'm not surprised because basically everybody has experienced increased costs.
And some were not.
Is it concerning to you that at the same time they talk about raising tolls, they're talking about raising salaries?
Oh, absolutely.
A toll hike is coming, but when confronted with the numbers, Frank Hoare told me the days of big salary hikes could be over.
Salaries will always increase. They'll increase a modest amount. We're committed to increasing it only a modest amount, and it'll increase as it does for our labor folks and MC Management Confidential employees.
30,000 and 20,000, is that modest though?
No, you won't see that.
But we have seen one more hike. Since we did that interview, the acting director right there, Frank Hoare, has received a $6,000 pay raise as he's been nominated by the governor to be the permanent Thruway executive director. He makes $216,000 a year now. Jamie Barbas, the highest paid employee you saw there, has not received a raise in recent years, but does keep getting that 50 grand bonus. The Thruway says she could make more in the private sector. The Thruway, by the way, funded with your toll dollars, but also over the years with government subsidies. The meetings are open to the public, but there's no public discussion of the millions or billions of dollars for construction projects that are approved each month by the PACB. That's the Public Authorities Control Board. The board exists to make sure there's enough funding for all these projects. So much funding, but so little public debate. And the lawmakers who are supposed to vote on the projects are usually nowhere to be found. You better believe you paid for it.
Recognize any of these people? I didn't think so. They are the behind-the-scenes bureaucrats voting on spending hundreds of millions of dollars of New York State taxpayer money for projects pushed by various New York public authorities.
All in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Aye.
Boom! There's a vote on $2.7 million. Don't blink.
In favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
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 There's a vote for $89 million.
Aye.
And there's a vote for bonds for $121 million. This is the Public Authorities Control Board, a chairperson appointed by the governor, and 4 members of the state legislature, a Democrat and Republican from both the Assembly and Senate. Only the chair and the 2 Democrats are voting members. But here's the thing. The lawmakers don't actually vote. They don't even show up.
Do you go to those meetings?
Not if I don't have to.
That's right. Meeting after meeting, no lawmakers, just their staffers. People who you did not elect, people who are not accountable to you. Senator Leroy Comrie is one of those voting members who does not vote.
It's not mandatory that I'm at every meeting.
Do you think you should be going?
Well, again, when I do the research on the different projects, if it's not anything that creates a problem, I don't need to show up at a meeting that's going to be automatic, where everything's going to be approved.
The other no-show voting member from the state legislature is Kenneth Zabrowski of the Assembly.
Why don't you go to the meetings?
Well, we have Ways and Means staff for myself that attends for us. So, I get a briefing before. We talk about it throughout the process, but we're right in the middle of the budget right now. So I could go to those meetings, but a lot of times Philip Fields, who's one of our senior Ways and Means people, attends the meeting.
On this day, a total of $2.1 billion is approved. Vote after vote with no debate whatsoever. One question was asked and answered, and that took just a matter of seconds. Senator George Barella was just appointed to the board this year. The Senate issued a press release on his appointment that ended with a promise that he would attend his first meeting later that month. That meeting was pushed from a Wednesday to a Friday. We attended, but he did not.
Your press release said you were going to be there last week, but you weren't there. Why didn't you attend last week?
Well, because they moved the meeting from Wednesday to Friday when we weren't in session, and I had obligations already back in the district.
All the lawmakers say projects are discussed and vetted beforehand, but that is all behind closed doors. Nothing the public can see. That could change.
We have a quorum and a 7-bill agenda.
The PACB's Kenneth Zabrowski chairs the Assembly Corporations Committee, and he has put forth a bill that could make for some public debate on the merits of projects that go before the PACB.
This bill repeals certain language for the Public Authorities Control Board.
The bill was approved in Zabrowski's committee and now moves on through the system. In the meantime, we finally did see a lawmaker on the PACB go to a PACB meeting. Senator George Perello promised us he would attend in April, and there he is, true to his word.
Now, the board meets again next week. Billions more taxpayer dollars will be at stake. We'll let you know if any lawmakers show up. Well, many of you look forward to retiring, and if you have one, taking your pension. How do you like the sound of getting your pension and still getting your salary? It's happening right now in the New York State Legislature, and you paid for it.
They are the double dippers. Good work if you can get it. State lawmakers who take a state salary and take a state pension.
Any problem with the optic of taking a pension and a salary at the same time?
Absolutely not.
According to records we've obtained from the state controller's office, there are 17 members of the state legislature who double dip, 14 members of the state assembly, 3 members of the state senate. Assemblyman Gary Pretlow is one of those members.
I drive close to 30,000 miles a year. I've been here for several decades. And, if I should meet my demise on the highway while I'm working, my wife will get nothing. She'll get my 1 year's salary, and that's it. What this does is it protects her. She gets a part of my pension. I take the minimum amount, but I want to ensure that my family's taken care of when I'm not here.
10 of the lawmakers are getting pensions as lawmakers. They retire from the legislature on the last day of 1 year.
Once again, welcome back to Albany.
And rejoin the new legislative session the next day, January 1st. Any lawmaker 65 or older and elected before 1995 is eligible. Most of them, like Gary Pretlow, say they do it to ensure that their spouse gets their pension if they die in office. 7 others get a pension for a different government job. Before he was a member of the Assembly, Phil Ramos was a police officer on Long Island, and he is taking his police pension now, not an Assembly pension.
I'm not eligible for a second pension. I can't retire as Assemblyman and get a second pension. I got my pension for the 20 years I served as a police officer. I worked for it, earned it, I get it.
It's not chump change for the double dippers. Retired Senator/current Senator Joe Griffo gets a pension totaling $78,960 a year. Add that to his $142,000 salary. That's more than $220,000 a year. There's Assemblywoman Marjorie Burns, a retired city judge and county attorney. Her pension is $85,000 plus. Added to her salary, that is $227,000 a year. Retired/current Assemblywoman Vivian Cook takes home an extra $42,000 in her Assembly pension.
You know what we do, and you know how hard we work, okay? And you know it's just not an 8-hour job, okay? I can get a call 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
All told, the 17 double dippers take home pensions totaling more than $895,000 a year. And of course, their salary on top of that. James Skoufis is the chair of the Senate Investigations Committee. He wants to do away with double dipping in the legislature. He's got a bill that says no pension and salary for the same position at the same time.
It's a bad idea because it's just inherently unfair. The average person can't double dip. And when you retire as a public servant, you should be retired.
We wanted to ask Assemblymember David McDonough about his double dipping, $142,000 salary and a $20,000 yearly pension. We went to a meeting of his Assembly Health Committee. We were there, but he was not. McDonough's chair was empty. He was a no-show.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
It was the same thing a week later at another committee meeting. No McDonough. At the time, he was getting the salary and the pension, but not coming to Albany. We're told it was a health issue. Meantime, Senator Skoufis says he understands the issue of taking your pension when you can so your spouse is covered, but he's got a simple solution.
The way to address that, if you're concerned about payment going to your spouse, surviving spouse, if something happens to you, is to retire and actually retire.
Now, as I told you before, the newest member of the Double Dippers Club, the only one to join this year, is Assemblymember Andy Goodell. He is putting his pension money directly into what he calls a community service account, and that money will be dispersed to charities in his district.